They say love can overcome all barriers, but can love truly overcome cultural boundaries, deeply ingrained prejudices, and even the harsh trials of fate? For me, Huy Tran, that journey wasn't just a struggle to hold on to love, but a search for the true meaning of family and homeland. I once thought I had found everything in that distant promised land, but then an unexpected turn of events pulled me back to the place I had left, and it was there that my American wife Diana and I faced life's cruelest choice: to hold on or to let go of a love built across two oceans, two completely different cultures. Could we find home for both our souls? I'm Huy Tran. At 18, after graduating high school in a small coastal town in Vietnam, I packed my backpack, my ambitions, and a prestigious scholarship to set foot in the land of the stars and stripes. The vast, glamorous, and opportunity-filled America opened up a whole new world before my eyes. I studied software engineering at Stanford University, one of the cradles of Silicon Valley. It was there, amidst library corridors and programming classes, that I met Diana Evans. Diana was a typical American girl: golden blonde hair, clear blue eyes, energetic, independent, and full of enthusiasm. She studied marketing, and from our very first meeting during a joint group project, I was captivated by her intelligence, humor, and radiant smile. Our love blossomed naturally and deeply. We were a perfect student couple, overcoming stressful exams together, sharing dreams of a bright future in America. Diana loved me for who I was, my sincerity, my passion, and even the stories about my Vietnamese homeland that I sometimes told her. She never bothered about my origins, always considering it a unique part of me. I still remember the first time I invited her to a small Vietnamese restaurant in San Jose. She was so curious, trying every dish with delight and praising the unique flavors of pho and fresh spring rolls. At that time, I believed we could overcome any obstacle. After graduation, we both found stable jobs at major tech corporations in San Francisco. I was a talented software engineer at Google, and Diana was a marketing specialist at an up-and-coming startup specializing in creative advertising campaigns for mobile apps. Our lives were like a dream: a modern apartment in the city center with views of the San Francisco Bay, challenging jobs with desirable salaries, discovery trips across America, from the sunny beaches of California to the snow-capped peaks of Colorado. We also regularly attended cultural events, immersing ourselves in the vibrant rhythm of one of the world's most dynamic cities. 2 years after graduating, we held a cozy wedding in a hillside garden in California with the romantic backdrop of a sunset. Diana's family was there in full attendance, along with a few relatives from Vietnam who flew over, including my parents and my older brother Min. At that time, I felt like the happiest man on earth. I believed I had it all: a career, love, and a perfect little family. Diana tried to chat with my parents using a few broken Vietnamese phrases she had learned, and her radiant smile bridged any gap. She truly tried to integrate, at least at that time. Our marriage lasted 3 years. Those 3 years were filled with laughter and sharing. Diana was very thoughtful. She always supported my decisions, and I did the same for her. We often spent weekends hiking in Yosemite National Park or exploring California's wild beaches. Sometimes I would tell Diana about my family in Vietnam, about our traditional culture, about my brother Huy Tran, who stayed behind to take care of our aging parents. Diana listened attentively, sometimes asking innocent questions about life in a faraway country she had never set foot in. She seemed interested, but I knew deep down she harbored a certain apprehension about things too different from the world she lived in. She often said, "That sounds interesting, but I don't think I could live without high-speed Wi-Fi and Starbucks coffee, my love." I just laughed and thought they were harmless jokes. I still regularly sent money back to my parents and occasionally called to check on their health. Everything seemed to be going smoothly, in a delicate balance between modern life in America and traditional values from my homeland. I was always proud of my parents, who had sacrificed their lives so I could have the opportunity to study and succeed. I was also always grateful to my brother Min, who took on the responsibility of caring for the family in Vietnam so I could freely pursue my dreams. I believed this arrangement was reasonable and no one was at a disadvantage. Until one day, a fateful piece of news crashed down, completely changing the trajectory of my life and our marriage. It was a peaceful Saturday morning in San Francisco. I was having a late breakfast with Diana, enjoying pancakes and coffee on our apartment balcony, planning a weekend trip to Napa Valley. My phone rang. The screen displayed the number of an aunt in Vietnam. I answered, and just a few seconds later, the smile on my face vanished. Her voice was trembling, choked with worry. "Huy, your brother Min, he had a serious traffic accident. The doctor says it's hard for him to survive. And even if he does, he'll be paralyzed from the waist down, unable to walk, unable to take care of himself. My dear, your parents are too old. They can't handle this shock, my dear." It felt like a lightning bolt. The plate in my hand dropped, shattering on the marble floor. Diana turned to look at me. her face instantly shifting to concern as she saw me suddenly pale, my eyes vacant. "Huy, what's wrong? Who called?" she asked, her voice filled with alarm rushing to support me. I could only stammer, my voice lost from shock. "My brother Min had an accident, very serious." Pain, shock, and despair washed over me. My brother Min, my trusted brother, was the only pillar caring for my parents in Vietnam. Now he couldn't take care of himself, so who would care for my aging parents? In that moment, amidst the chaos and sorrow, I knew what I had to do. It was an undeniable duty, a call from my roots that had been deeply ingrained in my blood. I couldn't abandon my family. For several days after Min's accident, I was like a ghost. My phone constantly rang from relatives in Vietnam updating me on the situation, to doctors at the hospital where Min was being treated. My mother has a heart condition, my father has high blood pressure. Both are in their 70s. Now their only son, who was by their side, was injured, lying motionless in a hospital bed. Responsibility weighed heavily on my shoulders, the youngest son who had gone far but always carried his roots in his heart. I knew I had to go back to Vietnam. It was an almost instinctive decision made without thought, stemming from the depths of filial piety and the responsibility of a Vietnamese son. I couldn't abandon them. However, I understood that I couldn't immediately fly back. My job at Google required careful handover, and our rented apartment also needed to be sorted out. And more importantly, I needed time to mentally prepare Diana for such a big change, even though I knew how difficult it would be. I immediately called my aunt back, trying to steady my trembling voice. "Auntie, I know. Please try to help me take care of my parents and brother Min for a while. I'll send money right away for medicine and a helper. I'll try to arrange my work and everything here quickly, then fly back. Please tell my parents not to worry, I'll be home." When I told Diana about my decision, that I needed to go back to Vietnam to take care of my parents and brother Min, and that it would likely be permanent, at least until the situation stabilized, she was utterly shocked. "What are you saying, Huy? Go back to Vietnam? Leave everything here? Your career at Google? Our life, this apartment, our friends? Are you crazy?" Diana's voice shot up, full of panic and disbelief, her face pale. She jumped up, pacing back and forth in the apartment. "Diana, I can't abandon my parents and Min. He's paralyzed now, and my parents are old and frail. Who will take care of them? I'm the only son left who's capable, and it's my responsibility." I tried to explain, my voice pleading mixed with despair at her fierce opposition. But Diana didn't understand. For her, filial piety could be achieved by sending a lot of money, hiring a 24/7 nurse or private helper. You can hire the best care team from top hospitals, send money monthly so they can live comfortably. We can visit them a few times a year, even bring them here if they want. But you can't give up everything to go back to a place you left to find a better future. That's not your place anymore. "Huy," she said, her face resolute as if it were a completely illogical choice. "Life in Vietnam isn't for me, Huy. I'm used to the pace of life here, my friends, my job is doing very well. I can't live in an environment I don't understand, don't belong to. I can't live without modern conveniences, without the freedom and growth opportunities like here." She added, her voice full of resentment. "You worked your whole life to escape that, to build a new life here, a life I'm also a part of. Why would you want to go back? You can have everything here, me included, a bright future. I don't want you to sacrifice everything for a responsibility you can solve in other ways without having to give up your whole life like that." The following days were a long series of endless arguments. We talked to each other, but no one was truly listening to the other. Diana only saw what she would lose: a successful husband, a modern life, a future she had envisioned with me. She couldn't imagine life without her familiar coffee shops, her park runs, her romantic evenings at fancy restaurants. I only saw my responsibility, the call of my roots, and the image of my aging parents waiting for me to return, along with Min's pained face. Diana tried to persuade me to change my mind in every way. She took me to meet an immigration consultant presenting solutions for my parents to reunite in the US, but I knew that was impossible. My parents were too old and frail to endure such a long trip, and they wouldn't be able to integrate into American life. Their souls were tied to their homeland. Finally, after a sleepless night, Diana looked at me with red, tear-filled eyes. "I can't go with you, Huy. I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. I tried to understand, but I can't. I can't give up my life here. If you insist on going back there, then we have to end this." My heart shattered. I understood that this was her limit. I had once thought love could overcome everything, but now I realized there are values too different, too profound, that not everyone can understand and accept. I couldn't force Diana to sacrifice her life, just as I couldn't abandon my family. "I'm sorry, Diana. I have to go back. It's my duty," I said, my voice choked, trying to hold back the tears that were on the verge of flowing. The next day, we signed the divorce papers. There was no dispute over assets, no anger, only sadness and profound regret for a beautiful love that had to end due to fate. We parted ways in tears and heavy silence. I boarded the plane back to Vietnam, leaving behind the American dream, my love, and a part of myself. Diana's tears as she saw me off at San Francisco airport still haunt me to this day. She stood there alone, and I knew I had broken the heart of the woman I loved. But I also knew that it was the only thing I could do to fulfill both my filial duty and my love. The long flight back to Vietnam was the most fateful journey of my life. With each passing hour, I felt myself drifting further from Diana, further from the life I had painstakingly built in America. When I set foot in Tan Son Nhut Airport, the characteristic humid heat of Saigon enveloped me, along with the noisy motorbike horns and the pungent smell of street food. All of it, though a part of my homeland, now felt alien, even suffocating to someone accustomed to the fresh air and quiet streets of Palo Alto. I returned to my old house in a small coastal town where I grew up. Everything was still the same, strangely simple and familiar, but also full of challenges for a senior software engineer from Silicon Valley. Life was initially fraught with difficulties. I had to refamiliarize myself with a language that had been diluted by English, with complex administrative paperwork, with daily trips to the market for fresh food, with cooking traditional dishes, and even manual chores like laundry cleaning and caring for my parents and brother Min, tasks I had never had to do in America. Min lying motionless in his hospital bed, his face haggard but his eyes still shining with gratitude when he saw me return. My parents were overjoyed, holding my hands tightly and crying. I comforted myself that this decision was the right one, though my heart remained heavy with longing for Diana. My savings were enough to cover living expenses and Min's medical care, but I felt like I was falling behind my colleagues who were still rapidly advancing at Google or Apple. In moments of exhaustion, I would remember Diana, remember our free and easy life together, remember our romantic evenings in San Francisco, and even her playful jokes about Starbucks coffee. The longing for my ex-wife and regret crept into my mind, especially on quiet late nights when only the chirping of insects could be heard outside. But then gradually, I began to find things that modern life in America couldn't provide. It was the warmth of kinship. My parents, despite their illnesses, always gave me boundless love, caring inquiries and simple homemade meals they prepared themselves. My brother Min, though bedridden, always tried to encourage me with his eyes with tight hand squeezes. The humble, honest neighbors were always willing to help, bringing fresh vegetables and freshly caught fish. Our modest family meals, where we gathered together sharing everyday stories, were full of warmth. I learned to love again. The small tree-lined streets, the familiar flavors of street food stalls, the afternoon tea gatherings on the sidewalk with new friends I met in the village. I realized that happiness is not about glamorous material possessions, not about a stellar career or luxurious trips, but about peace of mind, about genuine connections with people and my roots. I found a different version of myself, a simpler, deeper, and more mature version. I was no longer Huy Tran chasing fame and money, but Huy Tran living for family responsibility and community. I used my free time to apply my tech knowledge. I formed a small volunteer group to help the less fortunate in the village, guiding them on how to use smartphones, how to access the internet to find information about healthcare and education. I even built a small website dedicated to showcasing the village's clean agricultural products, helping farmers access larger markets. Helping others brought me a joy and meaning in life that I had never felt before when I was only absorbed in multi-million-dollar projects. Meanwhile, in America, Diana was also undergoing transformations in her life. I no longer directly contacted Diana, but I regularly received emails from Andrea, our mutual close friend, whom I had asked to look out for Diana. Andrea's emails were not just updates, but also contained Diana's sincere confessions as recounted by Andrea. The first email I received from Andrea after returning to Vietnam, she wrote, "Hi Huy, Diana seems okay, she's still working, still trying to keep herself busy, but I feel an emptiness in her since you're not here. The other day she told me, Andrea, I don't know. I just feel like a part of me was left behind. I still work, still go out, but I don't feel as happy as before. I miss Huy, I miss our deep conversations, I miss the way he always found meaning in everything." After 3 months, I received another email from Andrea. She wrote, "Huy, Diana has tried dating a few people, but it hasn't gone anywhere. She confided in me, they're all good, all successful, but no one has Huy's sincerity, warmth, and that unique essence. He always talked about family, about responsibility, things I never truly understood before. Now I'm wondering if I was too shallow for not listening to him. I see her starting to learn about Vietnam, reading books about its history and culture. She asks me a lot of questions about the dishes you used to tell her about." The third email I received from her, "Diana has changed so much, Huy. She's seriously learning Vietnamese and she's really enjoying it. She told me, "I never thought Vietnamese would be so interesting, Andrea. And the stories about Vietnam in the books, they really captivate me. There are values about family, about community that I've never seen here. I feel like I missed something very important when I was with Huy." She even invited me to eat pho and bun cha in Little Saigon, and she ate it so deliciously she even tried making fresh spring rolls herself. A few months later, I received another email from Andrea. "Hot news, Huy. Diana quit her old job. She said she wants to find a more freelance job, something she can do remotely to have time for what she really wants. She's spending a lot of time watching videos about traveling in Vietnam, about life in the countryside, and she often tells me, 'I'm thinking about going to Vietnam, Andrea. I want to experience it for myself to see what Huy's world is really like. I feel an invisible thread pulling me there to where Huy is, to the values I'm yearning for. I see she's very serious, Huy. I think she misses you a lot and she's looking for answers for herself.'" Those emails were like faint rays of light in my life. I realized that Diana hadn't forgotten me, and she was truly changing, not because anyone forced her, but because she recognized it from the depths of her soul. She began to seriously learn about Vietnamese culture. She read books, watched documentaries, and even attended a weekend Vietnamese cooking class in Little Saigon, the Vietnamese community in California. The more she learned, the more curious and captivated she became by the richness and diversity of this culture. From its heroic history, vibrant festivals, to simple but refined street food. She realized that what she once thought was backward held a beauty and deep meaning that modern urban life in America couldn't offer. The family bond, neighborly spirit, resilience, and patriotism of the Vietnamese people all gradually changed Diana's perspective. One night, I dreamed of Diana recalling our beautiful memories in San Francisco. But the scene then gradually shifted to an old tiled roof house where I was sitting with my parents laughing happily. I suddenly woke up realizing it was all just a dream. My feelings for her were still very deep, and I truly still loved her very much. But because of cruel fate, I couldn't do otherwise. I always hoped she would find new happiness, someone more deserving of her than me. One drizzly afternoon in Saigon, as I sat with my parents drinking tea in the courtyard, watching the rain fall and chatting about village stories, the doorbell rang. I was a little surprised as visitors rarely came at this hour. I went to open the door, and standing before me was Diana. She was a little thinner, her hair longer, but those blue eyes still shone like sunlight after the rain, and that smile still made my heart skip a beat wildly. Her familiar perfume wafted through the air like a breeze from the past. I froze, unable to believe my eyes. "Diana, what are you doing here?" I stammered, my voice trembling with emotion. I missed you," she said, her voice choked, her eyes glistening with tears. Then without another word, she rushed into my arms, hugging me tightly as if afraid I would vanish. "I'm sorry, Huy. I was wrong. I didn't understand. You didn't understand what you were going through. I want to try. I want to understand your world. I want to fix my mistake." My parents came out to see, initially confused about what was happening, but then seeing Diana hug me and cry, they gradually understood. My mother stepped closer, took Diana's hand, her eyes gentle. "My daughter has returned," she said in Vietnamese, though she didn't understand English but sensed the sincerity and love in Diana's eyes. My father nodded, smiling kindly, patting me on the shoulder. A few days later, when we had regained our composure, Diana recounted her decision-making journey to me. She sat opposite me in our small family kitchen, her gaze distant as if looking back at her days in America. "Huy, you know the decision to come to Vietnam wasn't easy at all," Diana began, her voice a whisper full of emotion. "I had to battle with myself, with the prejudices I had built up over so many years. I was scared of a completely alien world, a place I once thought I would never belong to." She sighed, then continued, "I spent weeks getting everything in order. I resigned from my company. Everyone looked at me as if I were crazy. I sold off unnecessary belongings in our apartment, things I once thought were so important. For several nights I couldn't sleep, just lying there thinking. I asked myself, am I going in the right direction? Is this a crazy decision? I prepared myself for an adventure. I didn't know where it would lead. Huy. When I booked the flight, my hands were shaking. I didn't tell you beforehand because I wanted to surprise you and also to challenge myself. I told myself if you no longer loved me, or if I couldn't integrate into life here, then this would be a meaningless trip, the biggest gamble of my life. I risked everything. Her eyes looked deep into mine, tearful. When the plane landed at Tan Son Nhut Airport, I took a deep breath, feeling the humid heat and the characteristic atmosphere of Saigon. The smell of traffic, the smell of food. Everything was very different, but somehow it no longer scared me as before. I took a taxi, giving the address of your house in the small coastal town. On the way, I looked at the unfamiliar scenery through the window, my heart pounding incessantly. I had prepared myself for everything, for difficulties, for surprises. Except for one thing. Would you still accept me? Would you forgive me for what I said, what I did? I held her hand tightly, feeling the warmth and the fear that still lingered in her voice. You're here now, Diana. I always waited for you, I said, trying to suppress the overwhelming emotion. Diana's first few days in Vietnam were a real challenge. She was bewildered by the chaotic traffic, the strange but alluring street food, the humid heat, and the conversations in Vietnamese that she couldn't fully understand. I patiently led her everywhere, explaining every custom, every dish. I took her to the hospital to visit Min, telling her about his arduous recovery process. I took her to my volunteer sessions where she witnessed people struggling but full of resilience. Diana began to seriously learn Vietnamese, dedicating several hours each day to vocabulary and grammar. She wasn't shy about communicating with broken Vietnamese phrases, and that delighted my parents. She learned to ride a motorbike, initially very clumsy, but gradually becoming more confident. She learned to go to the market bargain and even adapted to eating with chopsticks proficiently. She no longer sought the conveniences of America, but began to find beauty in the small and simple things, the innocent smiles of the neighborhood children, the friendliness of the local people, the rich flavors of traditional dishes, the afternoons spent watching the sunset over the rice fields. Diana also proactively sought freelance opportunities in digital marketing, helping small local businesses develop their brands and reach international markets. She used her skills to promote the beauty of Vietnamese culture, traditional handicrafts, and lesser-known tourist destinations. She felt her work was more meaningful than ever, not just about earning money, but about creating value, connecting people and cultures. She found satisfaction in helping a traditional craft village sell their products abroad or helping a small eatery become famous on social media. One day, Diana told me as we sat together under the moonlight in our courtyard, "Huy, I've found home here. Where you are, where your family is, and where there are values I never knew. I want to stay here, build a life with you. I don't miss America as much as I used to. I think I've found where I belong." Tears streamed down my face. It was the moment I had been waiting for so long, a moment that seemed like it would never come. Our love, which seemed to have died due to distance and differences, was now revived stronger than ever in my homeland. We not only mended our relationship, but also built a new life together, combining the essence of both cultures. It was proof that true love can overcome all barriers as long as there is understanding and an open heart. After Diana decided to stay in Vietnam, our lives were infused with a new breeze, a breeze of hope and understanding. Our love was not just the reunion of two individuals, but the blending of two worlds, two cultures. Diana was no longer the rigidly independent American girl, but became an open-minded, flexible, and compassionate woman. She loved my parents as her own, learning to converse, make tea, and even diligently care for Min with me without showing any discomfort or hesitation. My family also loved Diana, no longer seeing her as a stranger, but as a true member of the Tran family, a filial and lovely daughter-in-law. Diana quickly realized the potential of introducing Vietnamese culture to the world. With her deep digital marketing experience and a fresh perspective as an outsider, she began building a YouTube channel and a website called Vietnam Uncovered: A Journey with Diana. The channel's goal was not just to showcase beautiful landscapes and cuisine, but also to delve into the daily lives of the people, the customs and traditions that shape the Vietnamese identity. She wanted to share her own story, an American who found love and home in Vietnam, to inspire and change many people's perceptions of this country. Diana filmed videos about bustling rural markets, about the meticulous process of making conical hats by hand, about simple but warm family meals, about how Vietnamese people celebrate Tet Lunar New Year with unique rituals, and even moments when she awkwardly learned to speak Vietnamese, times she failed when trying to make Vietnamese dishes but still smiled. She took viewers to ancient villages with moss-covered communal houses, endless green rice fields, ancient cities like Huy An with shimmering lanterns, and beautiful beaches in Phu Quoc. More importantly, Diana didn't just film beautiful things. She also shared her honest feelings about the differences, about the challenges of integrating, and how she overcame them with understanding and love. Each video was a personal story, a journey of discovery and growth. Diana's YouTube channel and website quickly gained significant attention from the international community, especially young people in America and Western countries. They were captivated by the authentic, emotional, and objective perspective of a foreigner who loved and lived fully with Vietnamese culture. Diana became an unofficial cultural ambassador, helping to break down prejudices and bring the image of a beautiful, hospitable, and dynamic Vietnam closer to the world. Many young Americans commented expressing their desire to visit Vietnam and explore after watching Diana's channel. I continued my work, but now I could work remotely as a technology consultant for companies in Vietnam, using my Silicon Valley experience to help them develop. I spent more time with my family caring for my parents and Min with Diana. Min, thanks to the devoted care of both my wife and I, made encouraging progress in his recovery. He could move parts of his body, sit in a wheelchair, and always smiled when he saw us happy together, no longer feeling like a burden. In the evenings, our family would gather watching Diana's filmed footage, laughing and sharing memories. Our life in Vietnam wasn't always perfect. There were still difficulties, still differences. There were still unexpected power outages, endless traffic jams in big cities, or customs that Diana was still getting used to. But we learned to accept, to harmonize, and to find joy in every moment. We realized that home is not a specific place on a map, but a place where you have loved ones, where there is understanding, and where you feel you belong, where your heart finds peace. 2 years passed since Diana returned to Vietnam. Her Vietnam Uncovered channel reached millions of subscribers, becoming one of the most beloved Vietnamese travel and culture channels. Diana was invited to participate in tourism conferences, cultural exchange programs, and became an inspiration for many foreigners wanting to learn about Vietnam. She still regularly returned to the US to visit her family, but always quickly came back to Vietnam with me. For her, Vietnam had become a second home, a home warm not only with love, but also with rich culture and people. Looking back at the journey we've taken, I realized that Min's accident and my decision to return to Vietnam, no matter how painful and difficult, was precisely the turning point that changed our lives in an unexpected way. It forced us to confront core values, to look deeply into the essence of love and sacrifice. It led Diana, a modern American girl, to step out of her comfort zone, explore a new world, and ultimately find a part of herself she never knew existed. Conversely, I, a Vietnamese son who had lived too long in the West, found true peace and meaning by returning to my roots. Together we built a new life, not just for ourselves, but one deeply connected to family, community, and both cultures. Every day we cherish the simple moments together with my parents, Min, and our new friends. Our small home in Vietnam is now not just a shelter from the rain and sun, but a symbol of harmony, of love overcoming all barriers. It is truly the place called home. What do you think about Huy and Diana's unexpected journey? Do you believe in a love that can overcome all barriers like that? Share your own cultural integration story if you have one. Please leave your comments below, share your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exciting and dramatic stories. Thank you for listening to my story. Goodbye, everyone. Now I have to head to the airport with Diana. Today we're welcoming some very important people, her parents and Andrea too. We invited them to visit and their flight is about to land. A new chapter full of joy and reunion awaits us. See you all.